Perspective. It's one of those important things in life that we all take for granted. I have personally come to learn that one of the things that sets mature people from immature people is the ability to take advantage of having the right perspective, or if you like, training their senses to maintain an accurate perspective of life, of where they are, and of where they're going. It's usually when we are taking an account of our lives that we often like to compare, which is very bizarre because it is the very moment when we actually need to have a better perspective of where we are in life, right? So if you've ever heard of the saying, comparison is the thief of joy, that's what I mean. When you don't have the right perspective in life, life will just toss you back and forth because you are then left with whatever prevailing emotion or feeling you are having in the moment. And it could be totally wrong. Some of the most mature people, highly respectable people I've seen or met in life are those with an extremely acute and aware or positive sense of perspective. You get what I mean? They know where they're going, they know where they are, they know the conditions that need to happen or take place to get them to where they're going, and they recognize both their shortcomings and their strengths. They understand seasons of life. They are not bothered by the other person next to them. Matter of fact, they wish the other person well too. They are not moved by any way or by anything. And they are also very humble to learn from others. If anything, they are more quick to learn from somebody else who is maybe doing well than they are to taking that information and to do an introspection that ends up with them beating themselves down. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You look around and you look at your age mates. For example, in our case, my family, my wife and I, we have 2 kids now. You look around and you see families that have 2 kids. In America, at least, it's usually that maybe they own their own house, they have their own backyard, they're doing okay, that they live in their own house, which we don't. Now, the tendency with a poor sense of perspective in life is to then look at yourself and say, well, we have 2 kids too, and we aren't even close to owning a house yet. Wrong. We had been in China, right? So this is a little bit of hindsight. You look back and you're able to account with good judgment. So perspective is like the juncture at which wisdom, good judgment, sound, someone almost got hit. Perspective is the juncture at which, if you like, the intersection at which wisdom, insight, foresight, hindsight, good judgment, and discernment meet. They produce the right perspective. When you lack in any of these, your perspective is going to be off. So in our case, for example, just to make things more practical, and so I don't keep rambling, we came from China 5 years ago, 2020, during the height of the pandemic. So we've been in the States for 2 years. We came here with no child. Within 5 years, we've had 2 children, right? So it would be absurd to look at another family, and by the way, I wasn't even working in China. My wife was teaching in China. I was a full-time student. So to dare think that you ought to be at the level that somebody else is who's probably been working for the past 10, 15, however many years, right? It's totally wrong. It's just the wrong perspective to have. And this is not an excuse for not being able to do anything. It's just having the right kind of insight. And that's what I mean by having the right perspective. When you have the right perspective, You move away from that sense of entitlement camp, which says, I deserve to be this. No, you deserve only what you worked for. I'm sorry. The only thing you need right now, or you deserve right now, is what you have labored for. Outside of that, you're just talking about someone's benevolence or the sheer miracle of God making a provision for you. So, having the right perspective, I believe, is really what sets um, the mature apart from the immature. If you are immature, you would look out and you would be entitled and you would think you deserve to be here, you deserve to be in this place or in that place. Perhaps you're even in a totally different season of your life perspective. So it's one of those things we don't really take advantage of. And my wife and I, we see this in different facets of life, right? For example, in marriage, you might look at another one couple, taking trips, going here, going there, and maybe they have teenagers, maybe they're even close to being empty nesters, or maybe they don't have any kids yet. And you have kids, your priorities are different. Your priority now with these little ones is not to be running around the world taking vacations. It's even more stressful. So perspective puts you in the right frame of mind. It begets contentment, it begets clarity, understanding, and it grounds you on whatever path you're on to whatever destination you're going. It shields you from all the different things that seek to pull you away from the direction you're headed. So if you are looking for a good way to ground yourself, if you have a destination, whether in your marriage, in your parenting, in your career, whatever it is, just spend a few moments to ponder over what right perspectives you ought to have. What are the conditions that you find yourself in? What conditions have you come from? And what conditions need to take place for you to, have access to wherever you're going? In other words, what needs to happen? What needs to take place to help you attain whatever you're looking for in life? And I think you come out of such thought processes with so much mental fortitude and just clarity and understanding, and you become so resolute and you're not moved. You become very confident, and you also become a very loving person because you're able to look at others and just be thankful to God for them and just be happy for them. You don't need to be like them, and they don't need to be like you either. You can learn from them, which is another thing I talked about. That you're actually more humble when you have the right perspective, and you are able to focus on all the right things. So in your marriage, maybe you need to be paying attention to certain things, not what Mr. X or Mrs. X is doing. That's not in your league. Just focus on your own and live a sober life. Be very simple in your approach and run your own course. And that's the way that I choose to live my life. Once you bring in perspective, it changes everything, right? I started working overnight here at a grocery store when we first moved here. It was an overnight job. Yes, I'm college educated and all that. The right perspective for me to have is to take into account how I have grown in my career. Say that's the example I'm giving. So I started working overnight, and I think my income has maybe more, maybe even, I think it's quadrupled or at least tripled. Yeah, you get what I mean. So where I started 5 years ago is not where I'm at now. That's a great way to look at life, and it actually propels you to become better rather than looking at the other person who is probably the same age or maybe has the same family or whatever it is. Maybe you think you're even smarter than them, but that's where pride, creeps in and steals you away. So have the right perspective. Train your mind to discern the season you're in, and always sharpen your measure of having the right perspective.